Hello, it's Jill Fielding here, and these are the things that have caught my eye in the media this week. First of all, more signs that we all want to get back to normal, because two things happened in terms of statistics this week. First of all, the Deliveroo share launch didn't go as planned, and share prices fell by 30%. On the first day, and there may be lots of underlying reasons for that, but the main one is that people don't want to keep having food delivered to the doorstep. They want to go out. They want to go out and have real food on a plate somewhere else. So although Deliveroo has been fantastic during the pandemic, people are already looking forward to going out and not having to have food delivered to the house all the time. And combined with that, there's been some stats announced that there have been 13 million more physical visits to grocery stores in the 4 weeks to the middle of March than there were the month before. And it proves that people are going back out into supermarkets to get their groceries because they want to. They want to look at the produce, they want to touch the produce, they want to pick their own jacket potato rather than having a odd-sized one delivered by the picking team. So people want to be normal and they want to get back to their old ways and their own habits. And it's interesting to see that that's already happening, even though we're not out of lockdown. So I think we'll get back to normal pretty quickly as soon as the gates are open and we can do so. People just want their old normality back, and they're appreciating the fact that they could go out to a restaurant and go and pick their own potato. And me too. I'm looking forward to that. The second piece of news that caught my eye this week was that a lot more property sales are going on offline, so they're not being marketed or not getting to the marketing stage because they're being sold beforehand. And apparently about 1 in 5 property sales now happens behind closed doors without the normal estate agent's blurb and marketing. And that's an interesting stat. It's different volumes in different areas, but what it proves is that this is a seller's market. If a seller has got a property to sell, there are far too many buyers, and all you need is one buyer. So why go to all the trouble of doing in-depth and costly marketing when you can sell to one person who the estate agent happens to know? And there's actually been an increase in the number of properties available through what's called buyer agents rather than selling estate agents. And these buyer agents are people that go and find a property for you, and they get into cahoots with the estate agents, and then the properties go to them before they even get marketed to the general public. So it's a seller's market. Lots more property sales are going on offline before they're properly marketed. And of course, property investors are used to that. They know that the best thing you can do is to get friendly with the estate agent, because what you want is the properties before they come to market, not once they've come to market. So that's an interesting shift, and it'll be fascinating to see whether that continues after the pandemic. And then connected to that is the research that's shown that increasingly property sales are going ahead chain-free. Now, we all know the perils of a chain in property transaction. You know, your transaction's going ahead really nicely, you've got your buyer and your seller, but then something happens way down the chain or way up the chain that then collapses the whole set of transactions. And of course, that makes us feel powerless and out of control. And again, apparently 1 in 5 properties in London are now being sold chain-free, and it's about 1 in 10 for the country overall. And increasingly, people are selling, renting, and then buying so that they're not in a chain. And again, you can see why. People don't want to be held to account from somebody they don't know. People want control and responsibility over their own transaction and their own lives. So they want to control the timings and what goes on and when it goes on. And the best way to do that is to be chain free. because then you can choose and you're in a better position anyway. So again, that's an interesting trend that I suspect may continue after the pandemic is over, but quite different to how people would normally expect to transact their properties. And finally, a very heartwarming story about a dog called Dexter, who was a police dog and was trained to be a drug sniffer dog, but he wasn't very good at it. And he was far too friendly, so he got stood down. So he got the sack. But they relocated him within the police force to be a well-being dog. So now he sits with police officers so that they've got something to bond with and to cuddle when they're having their breaks. And Dexter also goes out into the NHS. And it made me realise that everybody and every animal, it turns out, has their own particular strengths and their own purpose and their own niche. Obviously, Dexter was never going to be a sniffer dog, but he's a fantastic well-being dog. And I'm absolutely delighted that the police have found an opportunity for Dexter to be himself. And I know that sounds a bit weird, but that's like all humans too. When we find our niche, when we live our purpose, we're much better at it, we're much happier. And far too many people spend all of their lives in a job or a relationship where they don't quite fit because it's not quite right for them. And use Dexter's story as encouragement to go out and be the real you, find your niche, find your purpose, find what you're strong at, and do that rather than live a life where you're confined to being something that you're not quite. So good on you, Dexter. Lovely story.